this single flash flashed again, and then it multiplied into 3 lights, and then 6 lights, all at waist height. And I've never heard of UAPs at waist height before. And then it magnified and proliferated into 30 lights, and they sprinkled themselves around the perimeter of the circle, exactly on the outside line, on the absolute outside perimeter. And I described it in my Substack as the biggest necklace in the world. It was glistening, all these lights around us. And I said, "What the fuck is that?" And he said, "Don't worry. What's happening is they are just telling us this circle is finished. Don't do anything else to it, because if you do, you might mess it up. It's like a little round of applause, and it's telling us to go home." And he looked up and he said, "All right, we're done now. We're going. You do your work."
The Codega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his Codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with the Codega and sharing one of yours. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Codega's Codex of Curiosities. I'm Rye the Codega, and this show is going to be quite interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Been looking forward to it for quite a while as well. So let's just jump right into this. Crop circles, okay? Perfectly symmetrical. They're, impossibly intricate and often appearing overnight. And now for decades, the debate has raged. Are they the work of clever hoaxsters, secret military projects, or messages from something not of this earth? Now, tonight we step into the fields with someone who knows more than most because they've been there, bending the wheat themselves. D, or Citizen D, is a pseudonym of a former crop circle creator who now questions whether all formations can truly be explained by human hands. Through their Substack, It Can't Be People, and numerous podcast appearances, D explores the thin boundary between art, mystery, and perhaps something far stranger. Could there be a force beyond human control guiding these designs, or are we witnessing a kind of communication from an intelligence we can't yet grasp? Or are we just being duped? All right, everyone. Before we jump into the interview, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, I would love for you to go leave me hopefully a 5-star review. It will take seconds, but it really helps the show. Just go right now, click 5 stars, hopefully, and come back. Great. Thanks. Now, also, if you're looking to support the show, I've got some great new shirts, and only for a limited time at the Codega's Bodega. The link will be in the bio. And before we get any more talking, let's just jump right into this. Let's bring D to the stage. D, welcome to Codega's Codex of Curiosities. I'm glad to have you here.
That's very mutual, my friend. I've been really looking forward to this one because we've got mutual friends as well, so that's all cool.
Exactly. Graham from Grimerica, one of my best friends. I've known him for years and years. So it's great to have you on. Now, hopefully, I gave you a little bit of justice with that intro, but
No, it's perfect. It's perfect.
It's just a little taste. So why don't you take it from here, and also let everybody know where they can find your Substack as well, or if there's anything else you want to promote.
Yeah, it's just a Substack, mate. It's free. This will eventually be a book, but I don't know when. It's just like taking its own time. But my Substack is called It Can't Be People, which is substack.itcan'tbepeople. And the reason why I call it Can't Be People was when I first became very interested in crop circles, I couldn't see how it could be people. But now, knowing what I do now, even there is a human element at work, we think that there is something else as well. And that it's like a play on words. My history is the same as yours, and the same as Graham's, and the same as most of your listeners probably. And that I've I'm steeply based in ufology. I've been studying it for like 40 years. I was very much a proponent of the extraterrestrial hypothesis to start with, but after 40 years, I've really gone down the road of like Jacques Vallée and all the classics, all the greats like Jenny Randall's. And I think that there is something else at play, and I think it just masquerades as ET, and I think it's probably ancient, and I think it's probably been with us since our inception, and that ties in with what I'm doing, with the crop circles. So my history, as I said, I ate the literature. I ate John Keel, and I ate it all up. John Spencer, all the greats. And in the 80s, we started to see photographs because there was a UFO casebook every year where it would be going, doing revisiting like the Kelly Hopkins, either Kelly Hopkinsville or the Lenny Samora, just the classic cases. But we started to see on top of like new UFO accounts, we started to see these pictures, and they were like flattened corn circles, just very simple. That's all they were, just flattened corn circles. And their precedent was as you probably know, was the Australian tally nests, from the 70s that looked like landed single circles, single saucers, or they had like four satellite circles around the edges that made it look like a birthed B movie, kind of the Earth. Yeah, and when they started to appear in Wiltshire, um, because they were in crop rather than grass, they were far more pronounced, and everybody took them to be landed, the imprints of landed spacecraft. Now, I'm of I'm of the view now, after having studied this for many years, that those single circles, I think that they are an entirely different phenomenon to what you know you associate with crop circles now, with all the bling and the intricate stuff. Okay, and a lot of us contend that they were actually a different phenomenon. Um, I When they started to develop into like the Led Zeppelin cover, which I'm sure you're aware of, and the bling stuff and the lines and the door keys, at that point, the whole birthed UFO thing should have just evaporated, because no one envisages, a UFO looking like, that, with like doorbell, door keys and forks coming off of it. But but by that time, but by that point though, the connection between UFOs and crop circles had been so ingrained in the public psyche that they turned not from birthed UFOs, that they then turned into, oh, they're now messages from our space brothers. And I always thought that was a really clunky transformation. I've never been able to really identify with that. I thought it was a very clunky move. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. It was like it was just this jump over, and how did like was there you think this would have been from the beginning, not just something like, oh, now that we're getting it more attention, all of a sudden now we have these messages. Like it should have been there all along as well, if it ever was.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, a lot of the researchers and a lot of these sort of people that have got sort of documentary makers and authors, they try and kind of get around this by saying, well, you see, what was happening was that the messages had to be proliferated slowly and incrementally so that we weren't freaked out. Now, I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. I think that the when we started to progress to the Led Zeppelin cover, and the gradual increase in complexity as the artist became better and better and better, I actually contend that the pictograms are actually a different phenomenon to the original single crop circles. It was like the humans like taking up the gauntlet. But that's not to say that you should be disappointed, because the mystery is still very deep. It's just not the one that a lot of people want. And when I first heard about human hoaxes, I held these hoaxes, as we call them, in the same disdain as a lot of your listeners will hold me. Okay, a lot of your listeners will think that I'm an egotist, and and we're just, or we've been accused of being like MI5, CIA, disinfo agents, the whole lot. So I do understand that there's going to be blowback. But what I can tell you is that all the blowback that I've had has been like within the community, but anything outside of the community has been absolutely very, very, very positive to what I'm going to reveal to you today. So to cut a long story short, I realised that Wiltshire was a little bit closer to where I lived than I realised. So I spent 10 years following this. We have this resource called the Crop Circle Connector, and that would always alert you to any new event. Now, if I would plan my days, so if there was 10 crop circles, I'd plan my day to visit the whole lot in one or 2 days. It's like I'd use my holiday from work and go and visit them. But and this is important. If I knew that 2 crop circles were definitely man-made, I would scrub them from my itinerary. I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't bother to go and see them. I was only interested in the 8 that were taken as being messages from ET or Gaia, or because I was of the same opinion as everyone else. I didn't know what they were. I wasn't sure if it was like nature spirits, or I didn't know what it was.
And I have a question. How were you able to discern, like, oh, these are man-made? Like, these 2 were man-made. I'm gonna take them off my list.
I
What was
couldn't.
your?
No, I couldn't, mate, because I wasn't as experienced as I am now. Now I can look at one and say, well, I might not have the experience to do that one, or the artistry, but I know how it's done because I've been in the field with artists that have done it, and I've been a foot soldier. I've been a
Got you.
stormtrooper. Okay, so I was only working on hearsay and reports that said, "Don't bother, that's man-made," and I'd knock it off the itinerary. But so, as I said, I held the circle makers in the same disdain as a lot of people in the community hold me.
I would say, like the hoaxers of any type of other mystery, like let's say Bigfoot, the Bigfoot hoaxers, a lot of people hold them in disdain as well. Like that's one that
I've used that very example in my Substack in what's going to be in the book. I've said I hate the Sasquatch, footage. I hate the fake ghost footage. The UFO footage is the fake UFO footage now is with AI at a point where it's saturated to the point where you can't trust
you
anything
can't.
that you see.
No.
And that's a sad state of affairs, because in the 90s, I said to Graham, I really missed the 90s when, before the internet, all you had was literature. You had Flying Saucer Review coming out every 6 months. You had the MUFON Review. It was a simpler time. And we didn't have the technology to be as deceitful as we can now. And I thought the mystery was deep enough. I always equated it to the magician with the cups under the balls. The mystery is deep enough. We don't want these jokers coming in and added another 10 cups. We saw they were complicating the issue. It wasn't good. But then I became deeply interested in it. I visited everyone that I could find. And then I decided one day, right, I'm going to use all of my holiday up. I'm going to go to Wiltshire. I'm going to align myself in the hotspots, of the crop circle country, and really see if I can get to the bottom of it. Which is quite an arrogant thing to do, because why should I get the answer when other people have been, it was quite an arrogant thing to do. But I started to. We had this pub this pub was called the Barge. It's still there. It's like the hot spot. They've got like a little ordnance map in the back where they tell you where the new formations are. There's photographs, there's details of where you can fly, all the coordinates of when you can get to them. But I camped out in this place for like 8 weeks, and I started to hear stories from circle makers that normally you didn't know the circle makers. You'd hear second, third hand apocryphal legends, little stories, just to say that they were experiencing really strange things, and they weren't going out to court these strange things. That they weren't special, they weren't anointed. There was nothing special about them, but it just seemed to be that because they were aligning themselves with the area and with the phenomenon. And don't forget, These have been made in ancient Neolithic sites. They've been made around Stonehenge, Kennet Long Barrow, Silbury Hill, Avebury. These are areas where our forebears, from now we think 4000 BC, so some of those monuments, we think they knew a darn sight more than we do now. It's like the pyramids. What they know, we've forgotten. Okay. But I started to hear all these really strange stories about time slips and people seeing UAPs. And what really interested me, dream-driven events. They're going to make a crop circle. They've sort of had dreams to do it, and they go to the field to make it, and somebody's already done the same design. Stuff like that, where you think this is beyond coincidence, real, and just supposed mistakes where they make a mistake in the formation, and then they find out that mistake was the most important part of the circle because of where it was placed or because of the date it was. All these really strange things. So, long story short, somebody overheard me saying, I don't care how they got there, I'm interested in the power that they have when they're there, because they're like sigils in our opinion. And this guy said to me, we've been watching you for a couple of weeks. We think that you're the type of person that would probably be aligned. Would you like to come out? We're going out tonight. We've got a formation that we didn't finish last night. It's not been discovered yet. That happens a lot, by the way. So you see formations and you think, how the hell have they done that between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m.? It's
Exactly.
a 2 or 3 night event sometimes. And because they're so tucked away, they're either not discovered or they are by dog walkers and just not reported. Okay, so there was this formation that wasn't finished, and he said, right, would you like to come out? And I spoke to my partner and I said, look, I'm going out tonight to finish this crop circle. I will make this promise to you and myself. If nothing weird happens, I'm never doing it again. Okay, and we went out and nothing happened. So we made this crop circle. I was severely disappointed. I thought, okay, these are hoaxes. It's all ego. It's all made up stories. It's all a lot of crap. I'm just going to move on. But when we finished the circle, I looked, and you've got to remember also, making crop circles is criminal damage. That's one of the reasons why I can't appear on camera today, even though I haven't made one for 10 years. There's no statute of limitations if the farmer wants to. So, it's not a criminal act. It's like a civil prosecution.
Oh, so that you could be sued for this. So not really charged with this, but you could be sued and
You can be charged, and it's not a criminal offence, but it's trespass, it's criminal damage. It's the police wouldn't be interested. The CPS wouldn't bring a case, but a farmer could definitely bring a private prosecution in conjunction with the police if they wanted to. So. And the other reason I can't appear on camera is because this is such a contentious issue. The narrative that I've got, even though a lot of people are steering around to it now, it's contentious. So it's against the narrative that a lot of people want to. So I don't want people in my life that are going to be trolling me.
fair enough.
So anyway, finished the circle, nothing happened. And then I looked to the edge of the circle and I saw at waist height this single flashbulb go off, like those old Polaroid cameras, the flashbulbs. And the first thing I did was I said to the team leader, the guy that had bought me out, I said, this is bad news. We've been watched. They're taking pictures. This is criminal damage. We've been caught. This is like a DBS. This is a stain on my character. Works the problem now. He said, no, don't worry about that. And then I said, why not worry? He says, don't worry. And he was really, because he'd made loads of circles. And I found out later that he made them because he was trying to connect with missing time he'd had as a child, but that's a different story. And this single flashed again. And then it multiplied into 3 lights and then 6 lights, all at waist height. And I've never heard of UAPs at waist height before. And then it magnified and proliferated into 30 lights, and they sprinkled themselves around the perimeter of the circle, exactly on the outside line, on the absolute outside perimeter. And I described it in my Substack as the biggest necklace in the world. It was glistening, all these lights around us. And I said, what the fuck is that? And he like said, "Don't worry. What's happening is they are just telling us this circle is finished. Don't do anything else to it, because if you do, you might mess it up. It's like a little round of applause, and it's telling us to go home." And he looked up and he said, "All right, we're done now. We're going. You do your work." Now, I found out later what that means is that for the time that you're making a circle, it belongs to you. But the second that you leave the circle, it doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the world. Okay. And he said, "Okay, we're going now. Bye bye." And when he said bye bye, these lights just went off, all of them. Okay. And then I went out with him because he was my mentor. I went out with him a week later and we did another circle, and we didn't see that, but we saw a single pink light flashed on when we were making the circle. And I thought it was military, because military are rife here. Okay. Although I do think it's strange that military bases always seem to be based around, strange areas. So we saw this pink light, and somebody else in a podcast told me that's like a Philip K. Dick download sort of thing. But I thought it's a chopper. I thought it was a chopper, and I thought, oh shit, because obviously they do take an interest in the crop circles and the human teams, and I said, well, they're probably filming us. Maybe we should run. But then this light just didn't move, and it was there for like 3 hours, and there was no rotor blades, there was no sound, and when we finished the crop circle, it blinked out, and that's when I thought I was hooked after that.
Yes. Yeah. This is interesting. This is very interesting how it's turning from this man-made, like you when I first was kind of reading into this, I was like, oh, it's you created these, and then yeah, you created a hoax. But no, it's almost like these are being created as a gateway, a doorway, a communication to something else.
When it comes to the dream driven events where you dream a crop circle and you go to make it, it's already there, and stuff. I mean, I've got another quick example. I had a situation where I had this dream constant, and it was always just before crop circle season, which starts in earnest in June. And I had this dream where had this out of body experience. I was flying over these two fields that I didn't know, and there was two fields, one circle in each field. And in my dream, every time there was a guy that I used to go to school with that I hadn't thought of for like 40 years. No reason to think of him. And I would always wake up thinking, why is Malcolm in my dream again? Because I haven't seen him for 40 years. And why am I dreaming this same thing again and again? And then when crop circle season started, I drove to Wiltshire, took a wrong turn. Now, in crop circle, in this phenomenon, a wrong turn doesn't mean the same thing as in real life. I took a wrong turn, supposedly. I found myself in exactly this tableau of my dream. It was exactly that. It was smaller, but it was definitely the same landscape. And something compelled me to look to my left, and I saw that the name of the road that I'd turned down by mistake was the same name as the road that my friend had lived in when I used to go and play around his house at school 40 years before. So
Wow.
I thought that's weird. So I thought, okay, I had a team coming down, because by this time I wasn't I wasn't like a foot soldier anymore. I was making my own. So I had a team. I had a couple of guys from Amsterdam, another local guy, and I said to them, look, I've got two designs here from my dream, and I don't know which one to put down. And we couldn't decide. I mean, they were both of the same ease, if you see what I mean. The four-man, we had four people, so that was plenty of time between 10 a.m. and between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. to get it down. So we got one of the designs down, and I kind of Luke Skywalkered it, because I didn't know what I was going to do until I did that first stomp. I just kind of emptied my mind. I let the force come through, sort of thing. I thought, right, whatever the first stomp is, that's what it's going to be. So we made this circle. And then the next day, I got a phone call from my wife really early. It had been reported, so it had been spotted by a pilot, and the aerial pictures were already up. And she said to me, "You were busy last night." I said, "Well, yeah, we got it down. I got one down." I said, "I didn't have time to do them both." And she says, "Well, you did, because they're both down." And I went, "No, we just did the one." And then I rushed to this internet cafe because this was like the days before Wi-Fi. You had to go to a cafe to get. And we saw the aerials, and I was awestruck because and on the aerial picture there was our circle, and then there was a strip. Now the strip was a big hill that you couldn't appreciate from the air, but that big hill obstructed our view of the other field, and so you had my first formation, a strip, and then my other formation was in the other field, and that team didn't know about us, and we didn't know about them. Now, the reason I've told you that is because it's what you said before. I don't know to this day whether we are interacting telepathically through the sheldrake species field to each other, or whether there's a triangulation at play and there's something else and there's a direction from somewhere else. I don't know if it's the collective unconsciousness, if we're subconsciously communicating with each other, or if there's something else playing with us.
Sorry, can we go back, D? What field were you talking about? What is that field?
It was in a part of Wiltshire that I'd never been
Oh,
down.
no, I mean like this communication field that you're having this communication. It sounds like
Oh,
it's,
sorry.
some people would call it like the ether or something like that. Is that what
No,
you're kind of referring?
it's called the species field, and it's actually a theory that has been propounded by Robert Sheldrake, and he says that every species has its own kind of communication with each other. It's like a hard drive, if you see what I mean. Okay, so the analogy is when sometimes when you go and see a spiritualist and they tell you that your nan's watch is in this drawer, they're not talking to your nan. They've got the information from the hard drive. Okay, so Sheldrake argues that the species field is information which is available to all within that species. Okay, and you don't necessarily know when you're I'm not going to say channeling. You don't know when you're accessing it. That's what the species. That's what the Sheldrake
Okay, so
species field is.
I think some other people just call it like collective consciousness, almost in a way that we
Mate,
like
it's the
when
same
we,
thing. Same
yeah.
thing.
Okay, cool,
Yeah. Yeah.
perfect. Yeah, this is I'm finding this really interesting because this is like these things that are happening, these synchronicities, and I'll say like this episode will be released after an episode that I just released prior to this, by Nathaniel Gillis, and there's some similarities that I'm hearing between these two episodes, which I didn't expect. So I'd love to hear more about this. Just please continue, D.
Yeah. I'm getting that a lot. I mean, I've done lots and lots of podcasts. I suffered burnout for a bit because I did so many, so that's why I'm doing this new round now. You're my first. But what I'm finding when I speak to ufologists and I speak to when I'm on UFO podcasts, they're telling me exactly what you're telling me. Um, this that there are. I mean, Jacques Vallée has always spoke about about the synchronicities involved in UFO events, whether they're staged events. I love the thing where he says about somebody's driving down the road and there's a UFO parked up because it's broken down in the middle of the road, and that's a staged event. There's no way that a UFO is had a spark plug go. Um, but there are synchronicities involved in ufology and seriology, which is crop circles, which tells me, and I'm not alone in this. I think it's all the same phenomenon. I think all of it is the same phenomenon. I think Bigfoot. I think it's all the same phenomenon, and I think it masquerades itself. I mean, I'm guessing that you know about cultural tracking, don't you?
No, please inform me on that
Okay,
one. That's my
it's quite a well trodden path. It is a concept that was introduced, I think, by Jacques Vallée, and what he says is that where we had the airship sightings in the 1890s, which were the airship sightings were before we'd actually invented airships. They were 10 years before. It just seems to be that whatever this thing is, which masquerades as ET, it just seems to place itself just beyond where we are technologically or spiritually, or where our maturity is. Okay, so whereas in the 40s we were seeing, very clunky, like the Trent Farm UFO. Now we're seeing slick stuff and lights. It just seems to be that it molds itself based on where we are within our evolution. Okay, and certainly with the crop circles and the fact that we are dealing in ancient land that's definitely revered, and where we've built Stonehenge and we've built these monuments of worship. It just seems to be that where what we would have described as away with the fairies back in the 16th century is now abduction by greys, and what our ancestors in Wiltshire called nature spirits and sprites, we're now calling UAPs. It's the same phenomenon, but it's tracking where we are.
It's just evolving as we, grow as well.
No, it's not evolving as we grow. It's placing it.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
you're right.
It's
Sorry,
just
you're right. No,
yeah.
it is. It is. No, yeah, you're kind of right. It's not evolving. It's just displaying itself based on where we are in our evolution. Okay, so why, if it like, I've always been fascinated by the fact that it's all trends, isn't it? We don't see ectoplasm anymore. We don't. Where are the Nordics from the 1950s? Where are they? Where are the contactee Nordics? The alien shape has changed as we've gone on. Um, but I think that we did.
Like a more common one now. A lot of people mention is like mantis. A lot of people mention these mantis type of alien things that they're seeing as well.
Yeah,
So
well,
yeah,
that's interesting because I read an account back in the 80s where I think it was David Jacobs or Stryber, maybe not. I think it might have been David Jacobs. So I saw lecture for Euphora, and he said that it's part of the hybridization program, and they just re-abducted this woman, and it was Greys, and they said to her, "Would you like to see us in our true form?" And the true form was the mantis, and that was back in the 80s. So you're right. Why we're seeing it now? It's like a trend. It's like a fashion, and it could be that we're going to see something else in 20 years as we progress in our evolution. And I think the parallels between that and the crop circles are very, very profound, in that we
now
are dealing with something that's ancient.
would this tie into a little bit like going way back maybe to like Mesoamerica, where you have like the Mayans, and they had like Kukulkan came in, and or in Peru as well, where they had travelers, white skin, fair skin with white beards, and is that like that was like the premonition before the actual white man came over or the Spaniards came over as well? Like you said, that was a little bit of time, and that's why like the Mayans and the Aztecs were very welcoming, because they thought it was the return of their deities.
Absolutely, it's bang on. It's the same thing. Totally, that's a perfect example of it. Because had it been Greys, they would. There's an argument to say that their consciousness, they wouldn't have even literally seen them, because it's so beyond their understanding. You know, it's like, giving a Tesla to Henry VIII. They just it's so beyond their understanding. And my friend told me, I'm not sure how true it was, but apparently, when was it the Esperantos that when they were invaded by these ships, because the ships were so alien to anything that they'd seen,
They
they
didn't
didn't.
see him.
Yeah, they didn't see them
Yeah,
until
it,
they
it
were
was
on the beach.
yes, it was actually, I think they had like a shaman who was able to actually see the ships, because he was able to perceive it beyond the normality of what he's used to seeing things that are beyond the normal scope of what we see in everyday world.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what John Keel talks about as well, isn't it? When he says about, if you think of like us on a wavelength where, like, it's an old radio, and we are a very thin needle, okay, because we've only got between, ultraviolet and infrared. But if the needle was bigger, where you're starting to hear and see this supernatural stuff, all it is other stations that you sort of weren't aware of until your pineal gland and your eyes open. But yeah, I think it's all the same phenomenon, honestly.
Fascinating. Yeah, and I agree with you. I agree. We're very fine tuned into one little station, but
Mm,
there's
mm.
there's countless other. There's so much more, but we just can't see it. We're not in that frequency to be able to expand, to be able to see that. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And when I visited the Neolithic sites for the first time to visit the crop circles, I had this very profound feeling of not I'm here, of I'm back. Now I think that was the collective consciousness. Okay, because I went to Wiltshire, I found myself in Stonehenge, I went to Avebury, I thought, well, oh, I understand this now, and the answer is, and then it flits away. So you're on the cusp of understanding what our ancestors understood, but then it kind of goes. Okay. I remember when I went to my first crop circle, I thought, well, whether this circle's here or not, I've got a very profound sense of this land being not alive, but there's a cognizance behind it. It's very hard to explain, but you've got this thing where you think, wherever this is, our ancestors knew it, and we've had it kicked out of us with this technocratic age. That's what I think. But it all ties in. I honestly think, and as regards, the crop circles and people saying, well, you're hoaxers. I'm prepared at any time to change my mind. Okay, but where I stand at the moment is that I think that it's a human phenomenon, but it's in tandem. I'm not going to say we're channeled. We're not channeled. And when you're in the field, mate, it's not like, oh, this is so special. There's no legend to it. It's just you're just making a crop circle. But then you look back 2 weeks later. I've just written about a Substack. Somebody had an encounter where couldn't decide which field to make in, and he got in his car, got to the top of this hill, got out the car, and this single orb materialized right in his eye line as if it was personal to him, like it was like just in frame on the center, right in front of him, and it pulsated and then whizzed off, and he went, well, that's it telling me I can do it. um so there just seems
now
to be something else at
do,
play,
do you? Was there anybody else who saw that orb, or was it only him who saw that orb?
No, his girlfriend. Luckily, I've just written this one. His girlfriend was in the car rolling a cigarette. All right. He said he only got out of the car because he'd already decided when he got to the hill, I'm not going to make a crop circle because this field is so beautiful. I don't want my first one to deface it. All right. And so he said, I'm not going to do it. And when he got out of the car, he had this experience, and then he said that his girlfriend said that she saw it at the top of her vision, but like the car like whited up a little bit inside, like this tiny little explosion sort of thing. So she didn't see it as defined as he did,
Yes, he
and
did.
that makes me believe him even more. I mean, I believe him anyway because I've worked with him, but yeah, just little details like that, Um, so
So
yeah.
I have a question. How did you make these crop circles? That's a I'm interested to hear about that. Like, what kind of technique were you using to create these?
It's so simple. People say, oh, it's like the Nazca lines. You've got to levitate above it to see where you are. You don't. What you do, we've got from April till September. That's the season. So from October to March, that's your homework. That's when you just use, like, it's a helix set. It's a compass, square and compass and protractors, and that's what you do. So a centimeter on paper is a few feet in the field. Okay, you don't have to see where you are, but we do use markers. And people say there's two myths. There's one myth that says, oh, these things are formed in seconds. It's a myth, and it's based on, firstly, this Oliver's Castle video um, from 2000 or 1996, I think it was, where somebody had supposedly filmed orbs making a crop circle, and that is highly contentious. And there was supposedly a report where somebody had flown over a field near Stonehenge in broad daylight and then flown back, and there was a circle there. It's just like sort of hearsay. Okay, so they're not formed in seconds. So you've got between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. And there's this misconception of how can you see in the dark? Go out tonight or go out when it's dark, and I guarantee if you're in a pitch black field, your eyes will be accustomed within 20 minutes. Okay, we use markers, and once a piece of crop is laid down, because the crop is like 1 or 2 foot high, once it's laid down, it's darker than the rest because it's laid down. So just very, very simple. You'd use tapes to measure it out. Sometimes I've seen teams using mariners ropes. So what they'll have is like Velcro over key points in the rope so they know where the measurements are. Because if you use rope, you get a much sturdier line, okay, and there's less chance of a wobble. And all you have to do is just look at the work of the beach artist Manu or the sand artist Simon Beck. The stuff they're doing in ice and sand is probably more complicated than a lot of the crop circles were. And as I said, sometimes I'd be working on a bit of the circle and I didn't know what it meant because I was just a foot soldier. And then when you saw it the next day, you saw where your bit fitted in with the rest. And you could be working anywhere between a team of like 2 people or 20, and you scale it up. So four people making a crop circle will take double the amount of time than 8 people doing the same circle. It's just scaled up. And another thing that I've written in the Substack, that this is quite important. People say you can always tell the human ones because they're crap. All right, the lines are wonky, they look rubbish. Now, I'm not having a go at this, people, but it is a statement from a position of ignorance, because I always equate it to Nirvana. All right, Nirvana didn't have to go out on tour or go out and do their gigs until they, a grunge band or a punk band can rehearse in artist's basement for 6 months and make as many mistakes as they like, and they go out when they're ready. You haven't got that luxury when you're a new team. Okay, your rehearsal space is the fields. Okay, so all of your missteps and crap circles are seen by the public and jeered as being man-made. But those are the same artists that, as they burgeon and as they become better, they're the same artists that in 2 years' time, the believers will be saying that can't have been made by people.
Got you. And do you believe right now, like I know we talked about the ones in Australia, but do you believe that pretty much all crop circles in the UK are man-made?
We still get events like those single ones, and the single ones, they're quite sloppy. Like the single circles, they're never reported, mate, because they don't look good on calendars. But that's the stuff I'm interested in, because because sometimes like the crop is like bent like a couple of inches up. You can't do that with a board, 6 inches up. It's like a dust devil. It's like this cyclone's come down. I call it God's drill. God's come down with a drill, whisked a little bit, and then gone back up again. They're the ones that interest me. But I'm of the opinion now that most pictograms and the complicated stuff is done by humans. But as I said to you, I'm happy to be convinced otherwise. You've got to be objective with ufology and crop circles and all of it, Bigfoot, all of it. You've got to be. There's so much confirmation bias in these subjects, where as long as the information molds with what your opinion is, that's the truth, and anything else isn't. People talk about real crop circles, that the crop is bent, not broken. And what they're not taking into account there is, firstly, the crop is very moist when we're making during the night because it's moist at night, but in the day it's not, so it's crispy, and it's gonna, a lot of the time it's like a crime scene. I know it's literally a crime scene because we shouldn't be there, but it's like CSI, and that unless you get to a new crop circle before anybody else, and what you're seeing is the damage made by the 100 people that are in there before you. Okay, so if you're seeing muddy footprints and you're seeing, wonky lines, that's the way people have just been walking over it. And we've got this other thing about they say, the knuckles are exploded, and
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, well, there's a crop scientist called Stuart Anthony, and he's like a genuine crop scientist, and it's phototropism. It's a natural reaction when a stalk is bent. Okay, when a stalk is lodged in the ground, its natural inclination is to try and rise towards the sun again, and when it does that, these this the moisture is released from the knuckle. Okay, it's a perfectly natural
Okay.
thing, but it's kind of something that the researchers latch onto as evidence that it's not man-made. But because we've got the sand art and the crop art, which proves that we are capable of doing it, these other arguments aren't enough for it to be aliens. Do you understand?
Yeah. Yes.
It's quite a jump. Um,
It is a big leap. I agree. You know, I've always been interested in crop circles, seeing them, but I've just like questioned like what is actually creating this or who and why. But I think why is now the bigger question.
Yeah, I
Because
agree. I agree. I
yeah,
agree. And as I said, with the dream-driven stuff and like the mistakes, and you make a mistake in the field, and then you realise that that mistake is like the most important part of the circle. We're not going out there with any plan, you know. It's sometimes like my friend's experience with the orb there. He didn't realise, and I didn't realise when I saw those waist level UAPs, it doesn't register until like you're doing the washing up 2 weeks later, and you go, what happened? You know, because you're in that domain, it doesn't register. It's like the Oz factor, isn't it? You know, you understand. You know, the Oz factor. So I've got friends that have had UFO experiences, and as it's happening to you, it's the most natural thing in the world because of the Oz factor. And then a week later, they're driving to school and they go, "What the was that?" It's only when they're back in everyday life, so to speak, that they realise that the enormity of what's happened to them.
yes, I agree completely. So okay, so let's focus on the why. Like, why do you believe that these are, you know, for you to like? I and I love that you're coming forward and you're like, yeah. At first, I believe these were what you know. I was believing they're UFO. Now I was making them, but it wasn't like you weren't making them to hoax other people. Like that wasn't
No, no.
your goal. Your goal was like there's something more to this, and I'm not stuck down here. I'm not stuck down here at this level. I'm moving up to this level, and and this is because it's something more.
Yeah, well, from a completely selfish point of view, the reason why I kept on doing it because I just wanted to see more of that shit I've seen the first time. I wanted to see what happened, you know. But there is a big but. I had a couple of experiences that were absolutely terrifying, where we went against our instinct and we made a crop circle. We started to make a crop circle. We shouldn't have been there. Everything in our guts said no. All right, and we made it, and there was this like terrible noise we heard, and then this rushing towards us. Something was rushing towards us in the crop. We had a feeling we were being watched all the way through. The vibe was awful, and we fled. Okay, so we ran like hell. Um, so
What that terrible noise you're describing? What did it sound like?
it was
Did it sound?
it's that
I'm
it
before you tell me.
sounded yeah,
Did it
yeah.
sound like metal on metal, like a metal door opening, or like a metal on metal kind of sound?
No, it
Oh,
sounded but I know exactly what you're talking about because that has been heard. Okay,
okay.
that's called the trill. They call that. Um, no, it was like this guttural, like this almost like this gothic noise that seemed to be emanating from something physical and animated rather than something which was non-animate. And God, it was we couldn't get out there quick enough. It was awful. Um, so as to why, sometimes you're going to. I mean, I had a situation I just written where I had a group of friends that went out and they shouldn't have been there. In that, from a human point of view, they were going to make this crop circle in like this basin, and above them there was some sky watchers, and they were looking, because it's a really lovely view in Wiltshire, towards up on Adam's grave, and they were there night watching. And my friend said, "Look, don't not look at this. I'm going to walk up round the back of them. It's going to take 20 minutes. I'll pretend I'm a rambler, and I'll just see what they're up to." And it turned out they were night watching, but he looked down from their vantage point and they could see exactly where they were about to be working. So
Oh, geez.
he come back down and he goes, it's just abort. We can't do it. They're going to see us 100%. I know they're looking at the Milky Way, but one look down here with that telescope, we're done. And his friend, who was not a police officer but not far off, he was in law enforcement, and he had the most to lose.
Oh, yeah.
Because people say, whatever this phenomenon is, doesn't really care what your job is downstairs. If they want you up, they don't care. So he just went, you know what? I think it's going to be all right. And then my friend said, oh, do you know what? I've got this vibe. I think it's going to be, let's do it. And they said they did it, and nothing happened, and they didn't get caught. And they couldn't understand why they hadn't been caught, but they did the circle. It was right in front, right below where these night watchers were. And then the next day you have to pretend you're a tourist. Okay, so you have to go
Yeah.
and say, does anybody seen that new circle in Winchester? Is there? And these girls ran up to me and said, "We were night watching. We were above that field." And then at about 10:30, which was exactly when they started, this fog bank came down like this big handkerchief of fog, like this cloud thing, and it was there until about 2:30, which was exactly when they finished. And then it dissipated, and there was this bloody great crop circle underneath it. And that's when you think, what is going on? We don't know why. We don't know why we don't know what the motivation is. All I can say to you is that they do seem to have a power once they're down, but we don't think they're creating a power. You've got to remember that the ley lines are very strong in this part of the world. So we're not, for example, saying that the crop circles are creating power, but it just seems to be that they're jump leads for what's already there, and the fact that there's sigils as well, and we're using ancient archetypal images as well, and we're using imagery which is reverent to the land. We use images that are as respectful as possible. It just seems to be that the presence of these crop circles is the same as like the stone circles and the tumulite, but without the heavy lifting. We're using crop rather than lifting rocks, but we're just if they're jump leads for what's already there.
Do you feel that it's like amplifying the energy in that
Yeah,
area? Like this could be
that's what
amplifiers.
that is what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to convey. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been talking with my friend Brad from the Awaken podcast a lot, and that's really what he is on. Like these ley lines are, these energy. These are these energy meridians, and what was he saying? Like, oh crap, I can't remember, but he talks a lot about the ley lines, and he talks a lot about the 33rd parallel as well as being a very powerful one. But now these orbs, do you believe like they're like plasmoids, or what is your belief in these orbs? What do you think they are?
Right. This is important. What you got to remember is that the locals in this area, because I do live here now, I felt compelled to move here. They've been reporting this ship for thousands, for generations.
Yeah.
All right, so it's not directly connected to the creation of crop circles. Okay, but there's this clunky jump, like the clunkiness between the single circles and the pictograms. There's this clunky jump to say, well, I saw orbs over a crop circle, so they must have made it. Now, no, because firstly, how the hell are you going to see in pitch black, a crop circle, the pattern of a crop circle when you've only got the illumination of the orbs? It's impossible. But we think that they are attracted because I've this didn't happen to me, but I had a situation where a friend's team made a circle, and when they left, they looked behind them, and there was like these dancing orbs, like trampolining off of it, and they looked like a scalextric set where they just swooping in a figure eight over what they'd just done. Okay, so what I have to tell you is that these orbs have been seen here, irrespective of crop circles, for hundreds of years, and the grandparents and the grandparents of the grandparents have all got these stories, but they call them, back to the cultural tracking again, mate, they call them nature spirits, fairy lights, sprites, okay, because that's their
Will-o-wisp,
that,
yes.
well, of the wisp, that's my next one, because that is their frame of reference. But I don't know what they are. That's the answer. I don't know what they are.
This actually, I'm just thinking about this. So, like, you have, let's say, Stonehenge, other monuments, monoliths, and whatnot, and structures. They're like permanent, maybe, and I know there's sometimes some activity, but maybe they're not activated anymore. And that was a place of energy, a place of transition, portal, anything. And maybe that's where they gathered, that they would gather in those locations to whether, to move on, to gain more energy, more power, more frequency. Um and because these crop circles are somewhat temporary, maybe
Mm.
they are like they're on the same lines of these other structures, but they're temporary, so they don't, and are not able to garner as much as they did with those permanent structures before. I don't know.
Yeah, the first thing I'd say to that is that if you go to Avebury now, and that's only about an hour from me from here, believe me, mate, you're gonna feel something there. But it could be that it's like a residue of what was there thousands of years ago, and it was like so powerful then that now there's power, but it's still there, but it's just residual. It's like, a stain of what there was. Um, but what's interesting about the orbs is that I saw one once, and it was at the end of a field. All right, it was a crop circle that my friends had made a couple of days before, and I went to visit it just to have a look. And this thing was at the end of the field. All right, and it moved across the crop to where I was, or about 50 foot away. But when it moved, I thought, well, I was quite scared, and I thought, well, the way that's moving now, by the time it gets to me, that's going to be as big as a bus or a juggernaut. Okay, but its scale didn't alter from the edge of the field to 50. It's like they're working in a different, they define our laws of perspective and science. It's like they're superimposed onto the environment rather than within the environment. It's very hard to explain, but it just
Okay.
seems to be like they're operating on a different realm to us completely. But I certainly agree with you. I think that the stone circles, yeah, they probably had a lot more power. And ours, the crop circles are, and this isn't my term, that they are referred to as temporary temples. That they're
Yeah,
transitory, and
that makes sense.
they're only there from, like, at best, 1 or 2 days to harvest. 4 to 6 weeks tops.
Yeah, I agree totally. Like that is something I do agree with. And again, I'm referring to my friend Brad. He was stating he believes that the monoliths, or these ancient structures, were actually destroyed by us to reduce the power output. Because there was being power or energy harvested from these locations, and many eons ago, millennia ago, we destroyed these, to, as in, like, a rebellion of sorts.
Well, I was talking to I was a guest on a pagan podcast called the Great. It was brilliant. It's so, the parallels between Wicca and what we're doing are quite dramatic. But he told me that a lot of the churches that we see now were actually built. They're in alignment with each other because they were built by the Christians. They were building churches to, like, crush pagan sites for that to be the predominant religion. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, because
No, no, and
yeah,
just
yeah,
to
yeah,
reiterate and to back that up, here in, because I live in Mexico, here in Mexico, that was done as well. They would tear down the pyramids and use those stones and build the church with those stones right on top of it.
yeah. But it's interesting that they say a lot of churches are aligned. If you put a ruler between them on a map, they're all straight because they're actually old pagan sites which were built on ley lines. So yeah, but this all does tie in, doesn't it, with something we've forgotten.
Yes,
And
yeah, I agree. It's, as Graham Hancock says, we're a species with amnesia.
mm,
It's we have forgotten a lot of our past, a lot of our history. It's been wiped clean or been stolen from us or hidden from us. I think it's actually the best thing is I think a lot of things are hidden from us. There are people who do know, and they are hiding the actual truth. Whether it be to benefit us, to hide us from the truth, to benefit us, or to control us a little bit more.
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I've been accused by a couple of the well-meaning people. They say that I sort of need Jesus in my life, and that I'm channeling, downloading the Nephilim, and all this sort of thing. But by leading with dream-driven events. But I honestly think that that it's hopefully a little bit less sinister than that, and that we are actually hopefully dealing with something that's malevolent, or we are actually talking to each other. It could be that this is just humans telepathically. It could be nothing more than that. And it could be that all of this, Bigfoot, everything, all of this is nothing more than that, because we've got arrested development now when it comes to spirituality, and what we're told that we're capable of. It always interests me when people that do believe that crop circles are made by galactic forces, whatever. They always say, well, we're being suppressed. Human beings are capable of anything. We're magnificent beings. And then we say to them, well, are you saying, but you've just said that we can't crush crop in pretty patterns. It's like there's a double standard at play. We are. You just have to look at the work that Simon Beck's done and what Mano's done on the beaches and the sand. It's and in the ice. You just go, we're we're incredible. We're incredible creatures. Don't dumb us down. And I don't mean that as an ex-crop circle mag. I mean generally every one of us. I'm a massive fan of Peter Gabriel, huge fan of Peter Gabriel, and he said that if you were to walk down the street and you had no artistic, you had no creativity, you had it was all latent, and if someone said to you, if you don't make something creative, I'm going to come back and kill you next year, okay? You're going to make something pretty bloody amazing. It's in all of us.
It is. I agree completely, and just to kind of backtrack a little bit when you're saying, like, are these things nefarious? Are they benevolent? Like, what are they? I believe there always is a balance. There has to be a balance. So I do know there's a lot of people who believe, let's say, UFOs, aliens of sorts, are demonic
Mm, mm,
or like fallen angels. But my rebuttal to that is the fallen angels were angels nonetheless. So that
mm.
means that if you think aliens are, and I'm just throwing this out there, if people believe that aliens are demonic or fallen angels, well, that means aliens are also angels as well. There has to be this balance because they were one and the same. There has to be good and evil, and so we always have to be careful of what we're dealing with. But I do believe that there is both sides to these things.
Yeah, and I think you're right. But and to add on to that, I do think that it's a question of how the wand is wielded, so to speak. I mean, you just have to look at the trouble that Jimmy Page got himself into in the '70s when he started messing about with esoterics and messing about with Crowley and messing about with the dark stuff. It's the same tool, okay? It's just a question of whether it's used for good or nefarious purposes. That's my opinion.
I think that's a great opinion. I really can appreciate that. Yeah, and I do agree. Now, I just want to hear your one last opinion. Or actually, I have a couple things. So those orbs. You said that you in your dream you were like in an astral form, passing over, seeing these areas. Could not just throwing this out there, could not these orbs be astral travelers from our dream state, investigating, exploring these areas and being powered up and being generated by these or being drawn to these areas? Like it's quite a possibility.
Well, it's funny because the bit I didn't tell you about that dream is that it always started because I always used to take microlight flights over the crop circles. They used to cost a fortune, but it was brilliant. Okay, and my dream would always start when we would be chartering a microlight. Always start that way, and then once I'm in the air, I realise that the plane's gone and I'm just swooping, and that's when you realise that it's an Ubi. Okay, But they do in the because I have seen in the genuine footage that I've seen of orbs, not making crop circles, but around the area, they do seem to have that undulating that it does seem to have that movement to it, where it's quite graceful. It's not move it's not, put it this way, it's not moving like a structured craft would. It's moving as if it's something with animation, and it's of itself rather than within a structure, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, of course.
It's
I
like it's
completely agree.
living, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I'm referring back to my previous guest, Nathaniel Gillis. He was believing that these orbs are like the projections, that they can actually project things that we see as well. So when you're talking about like this fog, some people, when some people think they see a ghost, they take a picture, and in the camera it's an orb, and it's like, okay, but I swear I saw this. So sometimes maybe these what they think what people think they're seeing is actually just a cluster of orbs that are projecting another reality over top of. It's not to say that the person perceiving is not actually perceiving this, but it's kind of like one in the same, that it's actually an orb, but it's projecting this reality onto you to make you believe that you're seeing this other
Yeah, yeah.
thing
It,
as well.
it could actually be simpler than that. And this is, I've written some crazy stuff in my Substack. I mean, it's mad. There's a situation where there was 5 people out, and then this bloke looked. They'd taken too much around this circle. They'd bitten off more than they could chew. The circle was bigger than, I think they were a man down. I think somebody had chickened out at the last minute. So they were a man down, and they still kept on with this original design, and they bitten off more than they could chew. And he said there was 5 of us, and I looked round and I counted us. I said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5. Hold on, no, 5 and me, that's 6. And he said there was an extra figure just flitting around, and every time we tried to see it, it would like flit somewhere else, or he'd say, well, that's Jim. And the people that he was working with, they were flitting around. Now, that's a crazy story, okay, but using your analogy there, okay, if this is something, this is Jacques Vallée again, it's not necessarily that he saw that, but it could be that if this is something that can it's not even projection, if this is something which is able to interconnect with your actual psyche, okay, then that will just manifest what it wants you to see. It's not. I'm not for a second stating that there was these people flitting around, but your perception of it was
Yes.
was because whatever you're talking about is, it's not a projection. It's just managed to hardwire into your hard drive, and that's what you see.
Dee, I know we're getting a little bit closer here to the end because I got to jet off here soon. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap this up? But I will say that this conversation was not fully what I expected, but it's much better. It was
Okay.
it's great. It's really interesting. I I I love this. Very interested in this.
Okay. What I'd say to you is that they're going to be detractors. Okay. Don't worry. Anyone who's listening to this, I was where you are. Okay. But I'm an expert by experience now. I've seen it done. It's not necessarily the mystery that you want, but there's a bigger mystery, and it almost makes landed UFOs mundane in comparison. If there's something going on, then it's interacting with human consciousness. That is something that's a proper mystery. Okay, so I understand people will push back and say, this guy's just an egotist or whatever. I'm prepared. If you're prepared to believe that a lot of these pictograms aren't made by people, just don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you see it, what's the human circle, and it's proved to be a human circle, don't think that's a hoax or somebody trying to trip me or laughing at me. It's not. There's something else at play, and we think we might be being played as well as we're doing it. And that's all I'd have to say, really. My Substack I update weekly. It's free to join, and I've got an account normally recorded every week from a new crop circle maker, and I am encouraged by the fact that I can't use a lot of the accounts because they so mirror each other that I've already got the same story, and that's encouraging to me. you know, because I speak, and all of the crop circles that I speak, all the makers that I speak to are vouched for. They're people I've worked with, or friends of friends, or new people that have been vouched for, and they're all coming back with the same stuff. And I go, with respect, thanks for the story. I can't use it. I've already got 10 like that. I've used one of them. So it's encouraging that it's not just me and not just 4 other people. They're all coming back with the same stuff.
Yeah. The anomalies are, they're they are anecdotal, but they're being repeated. Like, oh, this happened. Oh yeah, we've had that happen before with these other people, these other individuals. So that gives it so much credence, so much a credibility as well.
Same as UFO sightings. It's the same thing. Yeah. That's all I've got to say.
All right, Dee, this was a fantastic interview. I want to say thank you again so much for making the time, and I apologize for the mess up on the schedule. That was me, but I'm glad we got this interview.
It means I get to see Resident Alien a little bit earlier than planned. I can fit in 2 episodes rather than 1.
Perfect. All right, Dee, thank you so much, and just hang out in the green room, and I'll talk to you after the interview. All right?
Okay, thanks again, mate.
Perfect. All right, everyone, that was Dee. The interview that I expected wasn't, I did a little bit of background research, but not deep enough, which I think is good. I like doing that so that I am left more with original reactions and original emotions and whatnot. And I was like, okay, yeah, he's made these crop circles. He's doing that to fool everybody. But no, it's if you see it like that, you're only seeing a surface level. It's not like, I don't believe that Dee was an actual hoaxer. Though I when I look at some of the Sasquatch people like that are hoaxing, yeah, it's this, but this was something different. It was being like instructed to create something, and upon creation, or during creation, or after creation, there was a reaction to this. So it wasn't just like, I'm going to draw something in the sand and like make people believe an alien did that and walk away, and then nothing ever happens from that. No, it was something so much more, which begs the question is like, what is this? Who is this? And it draws me back to my interview with Nathaniel Gillis, with who's running the simulation. This ties directly into that. It's crazy that this is coming right after that interview, is who's running the simulation, because I think they go hand in hand. Nathaniel was talking about these orbs. Dee was talking about these orbs as well, this communication, these projections, these reactions. And I think we're, and like Dee was saying, that everything is connected. Of course, that's what we've been saying all along. Everything is connected. And that was really interesting when they had that experience with that, I'm going to say a creature out, when they just had this bad feeling, this wasn't good. I'm going to take a jump and say that was a dogman. That was some sort of dogman creature, some sort of cryptid. Yeah. And they should not have been there, should not have been doing that. Okay, everyone. So if you've enjoyed this interview, if you enjoyed what Dee has brought, check out his Substack. The links will be in the show notes. Go check it out. Look deeper into this. And if you also enjoyed the show as well, make sure you subscribe, hit that like, comment, and please comment down below. Comment what you guys believe. Do you believe, oh, Dee is just a hoaxer? Or do you believe like me, where it's like, no, Dee was being guided somehow, and was creating these? And what is that creation for? Was it benevolent, malevolent? I don't know. Let's hear what your thoughts are. And with that, everyone, this is me signing off. So keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.
Beneath the stars where shadows grow, the Nephilim's echoes whisper low. Bigfoot roams through the forest deep, and Dogman prowls where the brave won't sleep. Across lost history we wonder why, seeking the truth that time tried to hide. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries comb, and always find your way back home. watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies. Aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come and always find your way back home. Legends rise from the Earth's deep core, a lost legacy we can't ignore. With every step, the veil grows thin, revealing worlds where the strange begins. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come and always find your way back.